Morning, everyone, and thank you, Nasscom, for inviting me here. I come from a very different industry compared to what I think Nasscom is all about. But the subject of this conference of Nasscom is very close to my heart, very close to Titan Company, and I hope something that I'm going to share is of use to all of you. Bhaskar Bhatt, he was my ex-boss for managing director for 17 years at Titan, always used to say that the word human resource is totally wrong. He said employees are people. Employees are not resources. Resources are things which typically have an end of life, and when that happens, you discard them and move on with a new resource which is better, more efficient, and all that. People are not, employees are not like that. Employees are people. Employees have feelings. Employees have anxieties, aspirations. And the way Titan dealt with its employees was as people only, but the term human resource somehow continued to exist in our life. And 4 years back, when the new chief human resource officer joined Titan, when the earlier one retired, I took the opportunity to change that title to chief people officer. So in true Tata spirit, and in particular a Titan way, looking at people has been very, very different for us. And I'm here talking about people of all kinds who work for Titan Company. Employees of Titan, off-role employees of Titan, people in the front who sell our products in the stores, whether they're working for Titan or not, our franchisees, distributors, warehouse owners who are part of Titan, all the vendor partners who make our watches, our jewelry, and their employees, all the CSR partners of Titans, all these people, currently about 75,000 plus, we look at them very, very differently, very specially. And during COVID, and this has been there from the beginning of the company way back in the 80s, and during COVID, when COVID hit in first quarter of FY21, and it was just a few months after I became MD of Titan, and I was staring at the worst quarter in the history of the company, as all of us were. And there was so much of focus in the world about, losses, minimizing losses, conserving capital, and in a way, looking at the shareholders of the company, the owners of the company. But there were some companies, and Titan certainly was one among them, which said that the stakeholders of the company are the real permanent owners of the company in that sense, and we should look after the stakeholders first. If we look after the stakeholders will look after the shareholders. And therefore, whether it was the employee whose salary wasn't cut or who wasn't retrenched, or the partners to whom advances were given and life was made very easy, or partner employees to whom insurance was given, or COVID-related support of all kinds was given. We just took care of the stakeholders, and just in a phase of some 9 months, they transformed. They actually took hold of the problems that were, or challenges that were there in front of the company, and transformed the performance of the company. Just by the end of 2020, we were really soaring out of COVID into growth phase, and profits, market cap, all that happened, and the shareholders obviously, so easily benefited. So therefore, the stakeholder focus versus shareholder focus is also, in a way, the human focus that is very much there, and that is the fundamental value of Titan Company. And I wanted to talk about 4 different stories, if you will, where we are bringing in technology in a big way into those. The stories have those technologies, but at the same time, the human touch is very much in that. So let me start with the first one. Around 2015 or 2016, we ended up investing substantially in technologies to do with customers. So CRM platforms, web commerce, data analytics. To the extent, we used to joke about these 33 boxes, we used to call them. We had invested 100 plus crores in those 2 to 3 years starting 2015. And we were not really sure what we were going to do with all those things. We had a new chief digital officer in the company who was believing in all this, and we were carried away by his belief and enthusiasm, and we had done that. But in those years, it was starting to crank up. We were not really sure whether we'd done the right thing. But come COVID, when everyone is sitting at home and people were not worried about going to, showrooms to buy things, all these investments that we had made a few years back really kicked in, and we dramatically changed the use of technology on the customer side, to the extent that our Omnichannel business today is in excess of $1 billion US. I mean, that's how big it is in 2025. And over the years, even before that technology, we had invested substantially in customer data. We have a very, very deep loyalty program called Encircle, and it's got 40 million plus customers about whom we know birthdays, anniversaries, other special events, to some extent what they like, what kind of music they like. I mean, these kind of things are in the lower threshold of the data, but certainly anniversaries, birthdays, which are a very powerful trigger for purchases in a discretionary products category like ours. And therefore, knowing that somebody's 5th anniversary is falling due a month from now, and what kind of jewelry that she likes to buy from the track record from our point of sale system, and knowing the husband's email ID, these three together can make for a huge difference in converting what is a potential into an actual sale. Therefore, the whole 40 million plus data, which we have collected over these 2+ decades, and all the technologies that we've invested in CRM and all that, is the big data part, and we've really used that in the last 5 years, particularly to move to this 1 billion as an example on omni sales. But equally, even when all this technology is, in our favor, equally, we have more than 20,000 staff members working in more than 3,500 showrooms of all our brands: Tanishq, Titan, Fast Track, Earth, Taneira, Helios, Titan I+. More than 20,000 people working in 3,500 stores across India and a few now across the world as well. Now, these 20,000 people know about 5 million out of those 40 million customers personally. And these are typically repeat customers in every format, And these 5 million customers may well be contributing to of the order of 50% to our sales, because they're all the high repeat customers. So the relationship that these 20,000 people have with these 5 million customers is something else. It is unimaginable. I have not come across any company in India, at least that I know of, which has this kind of a power. And I was in Salem just last week for a store inauguration, and some of these customers were in the store, and they were just gushing, and they were talking about what is special about Tanishq in this particular event, and they were gushing about the individual store staff by name. And I come here just to de-stress. I don't come to Tanishq just to buy jewelry, but I come here to de-stress, have a cup of coffee with Narmada, spend 1 hour, go out. I'm really sorted for the next few days. I haven't bought any jewelry, but it keeps my relationship with Tanishq going. Now, this kind of a very powerful human relationship between 20,000 people and 5 million customers is a simultaneous weapon, even when we have 40 million plus data, which sort of constantly churns when a customer comes into the store and we ask for the phone number and enter it into the CRM, that entire engine generates what we call an NBA, next best action, that the store staff should actually focus on and actually start conversing with the customer. So the combination, so in this age of everything machines are doing thinking, we may think that the role of relationship between salespeople and customers is a little bit outdated. No, certainly not in our lives, not in our business. It's in fact rising because especially where we sit, the opportunity in the affluent and the elite, that's where we play more. The relationships are huge. At the same time, understanding them through their purchases, their preferences, all that is through technology is also key. So this is one very, very strong example of tech and touch. So we call it tech and touch. The second thing is, we sell watches through what we call multi-brand retailers, and it's a long tail, network. So we have thousands and thousands of small dealers in the smallest of localities in a place like Chennai, as well as small towns scattered all over the country. And these small dealers, if you go, and I've been to so many of those towns, so many of those dealerships, very small, almost a hole-in-the-wall kind of places. But for them, Titan is everything because maybe 50%, 60% of their sales comes from Titan watches. Titan has been with them for the last 40 years and all that. And surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, over the last 4 years, and we used to have, the distributors used to have vans. The vans would carry the watches, especially new watches, and go from town to town to town to showcase these new watches and bill these small dealers all over India. And we never imagined that technology would have a role to play in those small towns, in those dingy holes kind of outlets. But we said that we need to reimagine this whole thing, and we created a platform called D2D, so which is a direct-to-dealer. So it was a B2B watch ordering platform on the phone. And over the last 4 years, it's just taken off. So people are sitting in some small town, Bhadrak in Odisha, Angul in Odisha, Alwar in Rajasthan, in a very small, and the sale from that outlet maybe 3-4 lakhs in a year. I mean, that's how small it is, but for that person, that 3-4 lakhs is a lot of money. And that person is sitting in that small town with a phone and ordering watches on the D2D platform. So we've really gone deep with the technology on D2D. But at the same time, they're all ordinary people sort of wishing for relationships, and particularly the distributors who run these networks. And there are about 100 of those distributors. And I was in Salem when I was there for the Tanishq event. I also went to the distributor's office, and it's a very, distributors in a very different world from retail that all of us would be familiar with. They are really bare bones kind of situation. They have to eke out a difficult living from a very complex business in every category, I'm saying. And they are not really the glamour part of any company, and you don't get to, maybe companies don't give them that kind of an importance, especially a company like Titan, which is so much into retail. But Titan does not believe in it. Titan does not behave like that. So we spend a lot of time going to those bare bones kind of places and be with the distributor and give them the respect, the dignity, and the time that they deserve, that they require, and all that. And therefore, even as we push forward with something like a D2D, and these days the van trips have dramatically reduced. We don't need to take the van to supply, but they do take the vans sometimes to showcase new products, because new products, it's not that easy to visualize a 10,000 rupee product which could well sell in a small town in MP, but as a dealer, as a buyer, I need to see that watch as a watch, as opposed to see it on a screen and take a risk on 10,000. So the van still carries new products once in a while, but the overall basic operation of van to supply watches is just gone because it has moved on to D2D. So it's very high tech for that kind of a situation, but at the same time, the human touch requirement is there, and therefore in their hearts, Titan beats. And Titan beats because the leaders of Titan are taking time to be in the trenches with them, as opposed to just sitting in the office now because everything is flowing through the phone and through the app. So this is the second example of tech and touch that we see a lot of benefit in the company. The third one is on the employee side. We started a program, it's been there for the last 2 decades, it's called Tell Me. Tell Me is the direct access of employees of Titan to the managing director of Titan. So it's been there from 2003 or 2004. It used to be just a write-in, anybody could mail the MD and say, I've got this problem, I've got this suggestion, or whatever it is. And the MD's office used to collate all this and share it with the CXOs and the HODs for solving. In 2022, I decided to reimagine that. Instead of a survey, I wanted to have conversations with employees. So we created, Tell Me 2.0 in a sense, which today is in that form where I meet more than 50 to 60 groups of employees, 10 at a time, around the table. So it's not a town hall, it's a conversation where all of us are equal around the table, and these are groups of employees, homogeneous groups of employees, and therefore the issues which, in a way, build in the telling. One person raises a career issue, the other person joins, so it becomes, very powerful, and you get the impact of, employee issues. So when somebody tells me, women have told me that, when you don't have a toilet in a store, in a small store, it's not easy to have a toilet. And women have told me that, look, we run the risk of UTI because there is no toilet in the store and we don't know what to do. So this conversation actually really brings alive issues, aspirations, expectations of employees in a manner that no survey can do that. And already Titan is a very empowered, very non-hierarchical organization. That also helps. But equally getting 10 women, 10 men, depending on the kind of group that we're talking about. So that's the human side of it. But in the same breath, what we have done is we've used, on Qualtrics platform, we have brought all this into the Qualtrics platform. So almost like the day after each group happens, these inputs sort of flow through the Qualtrics platform. Alerts go to HODs who are relevant for solving that. And we have a leaderboard, status declaration, my review in a bi-monthly level on which issues are open, which issues are remaining closed, and the employee getting a feedback from that HOD saying that this is something that we can correct, and we'll correct it over the next 2 months, or sorry, it's too complicated, it's beyond us in a sense, so we will not be able to correct it. So on the one hand, it's a very human thing where the MD is talking to more than 500 employees in groups. On the other, tech-enabled for visibility, transparency, closure, and in a way, the leader performance, as well. So this is a good example of employee touch and tech. The last one I would like to talk about is on the supply chain side. We got into the Saree business 7 years back, and we have done substantial transformation in the jewelry business in the last 2 decades through focusing on the karigars. And there are more than 20,000 karigars who make jewelry for Tanishq and other brands of Titan Company, and we wanted to bring in the same transformation among the weavers who make the saris for Taneira. Now, some of the very interesting things that we are doing in the weaving area. For example, there's a loom in which the sari is actually woven. So what we are doing is, and this is at pilot, so there are sensors which are embedded in 3 or 4 positions around the loom, and the sensors measure how the loom is actually working, and there are rotational movements as well as the shuttle going up, left to right movements in a loom, which determine in a way, the rate at which the sari is being made. So these sensors, then sort of send the signals to an IoT device, which is connected to the cloud. And what we are sort of moving into doing is for the master weaver who may have 20 weavers in his or her unit to know when that particular loom is likely to become free on the basis of a projected total completion time which the IoT devices are measuring. And therefore, when Titan is sending a purchase order for a set of SKUs, I, as a master weaver, will know that, okay, the fourth weaver is likely to become free 4 days from now, and therefore I can load that person today. Or Titan knows that the master weaver is charging X for this sari in terms of the sort of built-up cost of weaving on the basis of certain actual building blocks, but real-time information is telling me that the actual time taken to make that sari is only 85% of the claimed time, and therefore a better transparency on the prices and all that Titan knows. And we also do a social audit with the weavers to make sure that what the master weaver is telling us that he's paying them, are they actually getting paid with that kind of money? So from the weaver's point of view, from Titan's point of view, as well as from the master weaver's point of view, this technology is helping in a big way. And unimaginably, if you go to actually a weaving location, you will not just imagine the role of this kind of technology there. In most places, you're sitting on the floor. There's a pit in the floor, and it's called a pit loom, and the loom is actually sitting inside that pit. The weaver, mostly men, some women, they're sitting on the floor with their legs inside the pit and weaving. And cobwebs all around, clothes hanging, tube lights, hanging. It's the sari that comes out of the place, and the place itself, there is no connection. The beauty and the exquisite sari that comes out bears no connection with the place in which it came. So therefore, to imagine technology and the kind of things that I'm describing is actually unimaginable, but we are going there. But simultaneously, we have created a concept called a Weaver Shala, which is modeled after a huge program that we have had in the jewelry industry over the last 2 decades called Karigar Park. So the Weaver Shala seeks to transform the unit, okay, with better looms, with people sitting in chairs, and the loom is actually on the floor as opposed to a pit loom, which comes with a lot of disadvantage on health and fatigue and all that. Much better lighting, a lot of dignity to the weaver in terms of PF, ESI, name tag, uniform, washroom inside, and an effective way of treating some of the dye is not planet-friendly. So what we call the 4 Ps, people, process, place, and planet, that all-round approach to dramatically changing the lives also of the bunkers, the weavers, so that the next generation of weavers look at this and say, I don't want to now move to working in a retailer, selling something. I want to continue my father's or mother's profession by being a weaver myself. So both from today to actually be fair to the weaver by doing all these things, which is the human side of it, as well as building the pipeline of weavers for tomorrow by giving that profession respect, which in cottage industries like this, that respect is slowly eroding. Therefore, we have done a lot of that work in jewelry making, and a lot of second-gen jewelry karigars have, in a way, come back. So we're seeking to do the same thing. So even as we are investing, and my time is nearly up, so I won't expand on it, but we've also built a comprehensive supply chain app on a platform called Param. Param is a blockchain based supply chain platform, so from purchase order to invoice and payment, that thing for all the master weavers. So that's more upstream than what I described as a technology. And we are, using 2-3 other interventions with the weavers. So therefore, there is a lot of tech with the weavers, which is very, very surprising given that kind of a thing, and a hell of a lot of touch. So the weavers are feeling cared for, the master weavers, because we are paying them on time. We are very transparent about the price discovery, the conversation. So the professionalism that we have brought in, all the master weavers, other vendors are recognizing. And therefore, it is very possible, in conclusion, for a fantastic combination of new tech in our lives without losing some essential purpose in our lives, which is to be human. Thank you.